think we should work an example. Look at this question. We have those information, direct costs, both materials and labor costs are there, variable production overhead given, budgeted fixed overhead, absorbed on a direct labor hour basis. Total is $500,000, and the total labor hours, 80,000 hours. Opportunity costs, is there. But what we want to do is to price this product. And we have 3 different bases to use. But we want to use cost plus method. The first one we want to do is to use marginal production cost with contribution margin of 45%. We use full production cost at 25%, and we use production cost and opportunity cost plus 20%. The last one is an hybrid, you can see. Like I said, you can have a combination of the methods. It depends on what the company wants to do, right? So the first one is to use the contribution margin. And they gave us that margin at 45%. What is the formula for contribution margin? I told you earlier that the contribution margin is just the same thing as contribution over selling price times 100%. That is the formula for contribution margin. So which means all we need to do is to determine what should be our selling price if we are going to achieve that 45% of our contribution margin. So which means that 0.45, which is our contribution margin, is equals to contribution over selling price that we want. And in that case, we know that our contribution is equals to 0.45 times selling price. So we know that's our contribution. But we also know that contribution formula is what? Selling price minus variable cost. I'm sure you can read it with this popular formula. We don't know our selling price, but now we know our contribution here, which is this. And variable cost, we can also get our variable cost from the question, because variable costs are our direct costs, which includes direct materials, direct labor, and the variable production overheads. So what's the total variable cost?
51.5.
51.5, thank you. So we know contribution is 0.45 selling price. So that equals to selling price again, minus 13.5, which is this one, and this one. Those are the 3 components of variable cost. So I'll add them together, 13.5 plus 30 plus 8. So which means 0.5 price is equals to price minus, what do you get? What do you call it again? 51.5. So which means with this, we can solve for price, because all we need to do is to collect the like items, similar items, which is PP. So I can put the P on one side, and I can separate the number. So I'll rather bring this negative on this other side so that it becomes positive. So which I'll say 51.5 is now equals to P. Then I can take this to the other side. Then this positive here becomes negative. So minus 0.5 price. So that means 51.5 is equals to 0.55 P. And I know with that, my price is equals to 51.5 divided by 0.55. And what is that? Calculator. That gives you $93.64. Any question on that? If they decide to use the marginal production cost at contribution margin of 45%, then the price of the product will be 93.64. But there's another approach that they want to consider, and that is full production cost plus 25%. Is this a margin or markup? Is this 25%?
Markup.
Exactly, markup. Please always take note. All these percentages that you have here, they are markups. I don't see any margin here. Because once you are talking about, there's one margin there. The first one is a margin, contribution margin. Yeah. Once you are seeing cost plus is a markup. So full production plus, that is markup. The third one as well, full production cost, opportunity cost plus, that's a markup. Once it's cost plus, it's a markup. Right. But if they give you margin, it means you have to walk back the way we've done it. Try and get either the profit first, then you walk back the cost, or if it's contribution margin, you can link the equation the way I've linked it. I'm going to even add more scenario to this, yeah, which you will do. Yeah, so what is full production cost? That's all we need to calculate. Full production cost is variable cost plus fixed cost. We already know that our variable cost is 51.5. So which means we need to calculate fixed cost. So guys, what's fixed cost per unit? Quickly. Now, you know the variable cost is 51.5. You want to get your fixed cost per unit. This is variable cost per unit. We also need the fixed cost per unit to arrive at the total cost, right? So the first thing is to get the overhead absorption rate, which is your total overhead divided by your absorption basis. And you have been told in the question that the total overhead is 500,000 and the basis is labor hours and the total is 80,000. So that means that equals to 500,000 divided by 80,000. And that's how you got the first answer that you gave me, and that's 6.25. Yeah. So if you're going to get your fixed cost per unit, then that will be 6.25 multiplied by the number of bases that your one unit will consume. And you know that the basis is labor hours, and one unit is expected to consume 4 hours. So which means fixed cost per unit will be this overhead absorption rate times 4. And that will give you $25. So in that case, the total cost that we are looking for is cost the variable cost of 51.5 plus the fixed cost of $25. And all in that will give $76.5 per unit. So this is our total cost per unit. Does it make sense? So if that is the total cost per unit, what price should we be charging? I mean, once you have your total cost, the rest is easy because you already know that your markup is profit over cost. Yeah. So, and you are given a markup of what percentage? 25%. So 0.25 equals to profit over total cost of 76.5. So with this, you can get your profit to be equals to 0.25 multiplied by 76.5. Yeah, and that will give us 19.13. If you know your profit, then it's easy because selling price is equals to profit plus cost. So that equals to 19.13 plus cost of 76.5. And that's how you got 0.65. And you said 95 as well. So if they want to use full costs plus, then they have to charge 95.63. Yeah. The third one, which is another scenario, is if they decide to use full production cost, which means this 76.5, which is our full cost, right? But they are not stopping there. They still want to add opportunity cost to that. So full production cost, opportunity cost, then on top of that, 20%. That is the third scenario. We know that the full production cost is what? 76.5. Then the next part that we need is the opportunity cost, which we dealt with in relevant costing. And that is trying to know what are we going to lose if we take those labor from where they are working currently. And this already told us that if we try to take them away from where they are working, we're going to lose contribution of $3 for every hour that we take them away. I will know that one unit will require 4 hours of labor hours. So which means for every unit they help us to produce, we'll be taking them away for 4 hours. 4 solid hours. And 4 hours means that we'll be losing a total contribution of 4 times 3. So we'll lose contribution of $12. But when you're talking about costing, you deal with cash flows, relevant cash flows. So in that case, if we take these guys out where they are working, what are the cash flows implications? The first implication is that we lose revenue per unit. And revenue per unit is the same thing as selling price. So we lose that. Likewise, we will not manufacture that product that we used to manufacture. So which means we will not spend money on material cost. So we're going to save money on material cost. So the net of the two is our reality. If we take them away from where they are working, and that is SP minus material cost. The question is, how do we get this net cash flow? We don't have information on selling price. We don't even have information on the material because we're talking about the materials where those guys are working, not this product, right? Where we are taking them away from. So we need to be creative to try and find this figure. And the only way to link it up is the contribution that the product is given. So which means we know the contribution equals to selling price of the product minus variable cost. And that is the same thing as selling price minus labor cost minus material cost. That's what will give contribution. So from here, we can work something out because we know that contribution plus labor cost will be the same thing as selling price minus material cost. So this is what we need. But what we need is exactly the same thing as the contribution and the labor cost, right? So the contribution that we are losing is total $12 per unit. And what's the labor cost per unit? That is 4 times 7.5. So if you multiply 4 times 7.5, that will give you 30. So which is the same thing as the SP minus MC that we are looking for. So variably, the net cash flow that we are losing, which is our opportunity cost, is equals to $42. Yeah. So our total cost in this scenario will be equals to the full production cost at 76.5 and the opportunity cost of 42. And that will be what? Calculator. That's 118. Please, you can also check with your calculator to be sure. 0.5. So that's our total cost. If that is the total cost, the plan is to charge extra 20% on it, which is our markup. So we'll go back to the same formula of markup equals to profit over cost. So markup is 0.2. So that equals the profit that we want over 118.5. So our profit will be that 118.5 multiplied by 0.2. And that will be 23.7. That's the profit that we want. If that is the profit that we want, then what price do we have to charge? We need to add that profit on top of the cost. So which means the price that we have to charge will be equals to 23.7 plus the cost that we are using as our basis. This is the cost basis. And if you add both of them together, 3.7 plus 118.5 will give you $142.2. Any question? So talking about the limitations of cost plus, there are two of them and they are related. The first is the fact that that product can be underpriced. And do you know why it can be underpriced? If you base your price on your cost, you might be losing that opportunity of a market that is willing to pay more than that. Because if you are in the midst of Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and those big boys who have a lot of money, and you just pricing your product because you are putting extra margin or markup on your cost, you might miss out on good price. There are people that love to buy expensive things. They will just buy it because it's expensive, not just because it's of quality or it's of good value, but they are willing to pay so much because it just set them apart. They feel that perception of class, that they are buying something expensive. So if you are using cost plus, you might be underpricing. But guess what? If you're using cost plus as well, you might be overpricing yourself out of the market and nobody's going to buy your product. And why? Because you always believe that you want to add some profit to your cost might be so high. And if your cost is so high, maybe because there is a slack, yeah, or maybe other reasons, maybe you're not just managing your costs properly. You are just spending as you want. You're not maximizing your negotiation to make sure that you pay cheapest for the same quality of raw materials, of labor. You're just building the cost, believing that you'll be able to charge extra on the cost. By the time you finish accumulating the cost, you had a margin to it, nobody's ready to buy your product because it's too expensive. Right? So those are the two limitations that is big for that particular method of cost plus method.